Hi, I'm Dr. Renee Hackney. Welcome to Parenting by Dr. Renee. Today we're going to start a 5-part series on managing tantrums. In this clip, we're going to talk about the basics, some things to know that will help you understand tantrums. The first is the age guidelines. From 1.5 to about 4.5 or 5 years old, tantrums are seen as being developmentally normal behavior, almost expected behavior. That if you get past that 4.5 or 5 years old with a child and they've not had a tantrum, you're in a small, very lucky category. Most kids just fall to pieces somewhere in there. They're learning to manage emotions, and so in that 1.5 to 3.5, 4-year-old range, they don't have a lot of coping skill, they don't have a lot of ways to express emotions in better ways, and so they're easily overwhelmed. What they tend to call these tantrums, they're called true emotional tantrums or true tantrums, and it's when the child wants to tell you something and they don't have the language and it overwhelms them. Or they want to reach something and they're too short and they fall to pieces. You can see a true emotional tantrum in an older child, in a 7 or 8-year-old. It's just not as common. Often as children are getting older, they've learned better coping skills, better language skills, and so it's not as likely that they're going to be that overwhelmed or fall to pieces. But it is still within normal to have an older child who is truly just overwhelmed by emotion. What we tend to see as children are getting a little older are called tantrums for attention or tantrums for control. I think of that 7 or 8-year-old tantruming in a toy store over a Barbie. Likely that's worked for them. Likely they've gotten somewhere with that, or they've gotten a toy from doing that before. It may be that just at least every once in a while it's been reinforced in that dynamic. And so the idea is you may see a tantrum for control as children are getting a little bit older. It can happen that you see a tantrum for control or manipulation in a much younger child. It's just not real common. This is a horrible place to get an example, but my kids, after bath one night, they were watching that America's Funniest Videos, and there was a dad videotaping his little 2-year-old having a tantrum, and I thought, what a horrible thing to videotape. But the dad put the camera down and went into the next room, and the child collected himself, marched into this room, threw himself out on the floor. He was not overwhelmed. He was not so emotional he couldn't, think straight or communicate anymore. He was showing off for his dad, and that's a tantrum more for attention. Now, for the purposes of this 5-series clip, I want you to just lump all that together, because the idea is you want to have a consistent response to tantrums, kind of regardless of where they come from. And so we're going to talk about these basics, and the idea is that there may be these 2 different types of tantrums. But for addressing them, it's good to just lump that all together for now. There's also a very basic difference between child expressing negative emotion versus child tantruming. So a child who's just expressing negative emotion, they're frustrated, they're angry. To me though, they're still with you. They're still communicating in a good way. They're still able to answer questions. They're still able to kind of pull it together. If they're just expressing negative emotions, you are their emotion coach. You're there to help them learn about the emotion, calm from the emotion, better communicate that emotion. And so the idea is I want you to connect with that and help them work through. Somewhere in there, they may fall over into tantruming, because that can be a continuum for children. They were angry and now they're tantruming. Where that line, where they cross over into tantrum to me is they've lost their sense of reason. Whatever little reason they had a few minutes ago, it's now gone. If you feel like my language just isn't helping, that's because they're over here, they're tantruming. And so that idea, if you feel like, wow, my language isn't helping, it's because your language isn't. They've checked out from you. They're on overload, they're on overwhelmed. And so when you feel that difference, that's when they're tantruming. And that's what the next several video clips are about, is what to do to prevent those moments and what to do, how to best manage those moments. I had a mom in class who said, I know right where that line is. My child goes from being angry to being drunk. And I went, drunk? And she said, yeah, he starts to babble. He doesn't know what he wants anymore. Nothing makes him happy. And so that idea to her is he had checked out. He had lost his little sense of reason, and he was now overwhelmed, disconnected from. There's also a bit of a difference between what's called tantruming behavior versus a full-blown tantrum. So tantruming behavior is that little 10, 15-second thing. They kick the couch and they throw themselves on the floor, and then it's kind of over. versus what parents describe as the 10-minute thing or the 15-minute thing. And I know it can go much longer, but that idea, if it's a longer tantrum, there's tantruming behavior, the little thing, and full-blown tantrum. I want you to lump all that together as well, because how you respond to the little 10 or 15-second thing, it may make it go longer. And so I want you to have a consistent response. We're going to talk in a later video clip about managing emotions in general and how to be their emotion coach. For the purposes of these videos, we're talking about when they're tantruming. Now, as much as I say tantrums are developmentally normal behavior, almost expected behavior in that little age range, if you feel your child's tantrums are more frequent than others or more intense or longer duration, by all means, talk to your pediatrician about their tantrums. It might be also helpful to take a class on tantrums if you've got parenting workshops near you, or read a good book. There's a book titled No More Meltdowns that's all about tantrums. So if you feel like it's bigger than typical, or it's more frequent, or it's longer lasting, good to get a second opinion about those things. Thank you so much.